Hello. So for my first tutorial, I decided to draw a cow because it's sort of simple, but it can still present a challenge if you are looking for a challenge. I always start my cow by the eyes. The thing to remember throughout all of this, and especially the eyes, is that cows have the same parts as people. It's kind of like drawing a person, but if the person got a little bit twisted out of shape, So just draw kind of a person's eyes, making it, rounder, wider, bigger. They're really big people's eyes with big lashes, and they still have these lines under the eyes like every person does, Well, some cows don't have them, but most types of cow have them. I always draw both eyes because it will help you to grid out the face. You can use the eyes as kind of like place markers. They can help you determine, the perspective that you need to be using, because that's something that happens sometimes in a drawing. Even to the best, is that the perspective. You rotate the image in your mind, and then all of a sudden you're drawing from a different angle than you were before, and you finish up your drawing and you're like, oh no, this is wrong, you're like, you messed up. So if you give yourself like reminders throughout the drawing, like that this is the angle you're supposed to be using, like having the eyes evenly spaced, that will help you to draw them the right way. The nose of a cow is kind of like a knot. It's just sort of, it's not like a person's nose, except it is in that the bridge of the nose kind of goes up and it has kind of a bump right there. It goes between the eyes, just like a person. But the end kind of looks weirdly shaped, so it's a little different. Right now I'm drawing the eyebrows. The cows do have eyebrows, but when we finish shading, they will become less pronounced. Like right now, this looks wrong, sort of, but at the end we'll shade it, and then you'll see that they look a little bit like they're supposed to be there once you get the whole picture. The mouth of a cow starts right at the end of the nose, and it right at the bottom, and it goes up, and it kind of goes down like that. And my cow is going to be he's going to have his mouth open a little bit, so the bottom teeth are going to be a little bit visible. So I'm drawing the bottom teeth right now. And if you follow the skull line is important, because that helps you determine, where the horns go on the cow. This is an ear, but the horns follow along the same line as the ear. So you put a horn right there, and you just kind of make them stick out. You kind of want your horns to be equal size, almost as high as the ear. Helps a little bit, and it'll help you to kind of keep the cow symmetrical when you're drawing it. It'll balance out the head. It's kind of, because cows' heads are they're a little bit like ugly people, but they're most like, if you were a cow, it would still be beautiful in the same way that a human's head is beautiful, because it would be the way that you're supposed to look, And that's the thing, is that if you want to draw a realistic looking cow, you kind of have to be willing to draw something that's not the best looking thing you've ever drawn. So it's important to draw the tongue, because the tongue is often the most edible part in some cultures. It's the most edible part of the cow, and everyone will recognize it instantly. Like if someone looks at the tongue and they're used to eating them, then they say, that's something I want to eat, or that's not something I want to eat. That's not a cow's tongue, So, I like to put these little hairs. I put the hairs on the tongue and on the nose, because those are kind of the places that cow's hairs, they're very strong hairs, but they're sort of tiny little noticeable hairs on some cows. If you go, if you've ever been to a farm, then you know about the cow's noses are very, like, they have these little hairs on them. So these are the bottom teeth now. These are top teeth now because of the tongue that I put in there. And I'm gonna make my top teeth a little bit sharper. Most cows' teeth aren't sharp because they only eat grass, but my cow, I think, eats a little more meat than other cows. So he's got to have sharp teeth in the back of his mouth there, and that's something, a lot of artists are kind of afraid to improvise as they're drawing, even in a realistic drawing like this, but you have to be willing to, improvise, because that keeps your lines from being stale, and it makes your picture look like a real living thing, without the movement in your drawing, you get this block of a cow, you get printing, it's not really very good. So don't forget the lip of the cow, because cows do have lips. It's kind of funny, but they do have lips, and they're kind of darker than the skin, and it kind of helps to make them darker than the inside of the mouth too. I don't know if it's showing up on the camera, but I made that lip really dark. That's kind of how they're supposed to look, because when they open their mouths, you can see their lips stand out really against their teeth and their tongue and stuff. The shoulder has to be really muscular. This is the shoulder right here, because it holds up all the weight of the cow, and you gotta just gotta make a really good hoof. My hoof is kind of nubby, because again, I'm improvising, and I want this cow to feel like a real cow, and not, you don't always have to do what you know is right, because sometimes it's better if you make something that feels like it's right for the viewer, for the audience and stuff. Just like a musician or an actor improvises their notes. They're not always right with the song as it's written, So I'm gonna the other leg can go here, but I'm going to cut him off. I mean, not cut, just kind of stop him right there for the sake of time. He's gonna, well, cows normally have hooves, so I'm gonna put a little hoof right here. I mean, no, it's a tuxedo. He's wearing a little tuxedo. Hi guys, can I ever come to your party? It's kind of, and when I went to a college fair, art college fair, they told me that I need to put more backgrounds in, so I put in this horizon, and I could put in some buildings if I hadn't already drawn the horizon, because the buildings would be in front of the horizon, but now he's just, he's at the desert, or he's at the ocean, or whatever, and I also like to, because cows are very thoughtful creatures, so I like to give them a thought, even in a realistic drawing, it helps to put a little thought bubble, because sometimes, it'll help some audience members to view this guy as a real thing with emotions, because sometimes it's hard to care about an animal unless you make them talk, like a cat. If you make him say something, he's a funny cat, make him thinking, oh, I hate today, So I'm gonna go It's a Living, which is a classic, this guy's like, it's a living, like the Flintstones, when the guys are done with work, they go, it's a living, because they're done with their job. Okay, so this is a cow by Davey 0808, and I'll see you next time.